And welcome once again to Flashpoints. I'm Bob Orr. Joining me, Juan Zarate. He's our national security analyst. Juan, good to see you again.
Bob, great to see you.
So very interesting kind of dance being done in Normandy for the 70th anniversary of D-Day. You have President Obama there, of course, and you have Russian President Putin there, and they're not on the best of terms, but they have this casual meeting. What's that mean?
Well, I think it's an attempt to keep the lines of communication open. You'd never want to shut them down completely between world leaders, especially the leaders of two important countries like the U.S. and Russia. But I think it's also reflective of where we are in the Ukraine crisis. I think there's now a period of relative stability. You've had the elections, which were largely not disrupted. You still have a lot of violence and disruption in eastern Ukraine, but you don't see any sort of moment of crisis sort of on the horizon here. And so I think the leaders of Europe, the United States, and Russia are trying to figure out, what's the next step. And I think this was an opportunity, D-Day, where you had the alliance of the U.S. and then the Soviet Union against the Nazis, as a moment to really kind of just take a breather, have the leaders talk, and have it be a moment of reflection.
So the White House made a point of saying this was not an official bilateral meeting. This was not arranged. It was a casual 15-minute chat, but it couldn't have been real comfortable. I mean, the president's been talking very tough. Putin has not backed down. He's annexed Crimea. So what happens in that kind of conversation? Is it all about just the optics?
Yeah, it's a little bit. An event like this actually provides an opportunity to not necessarily deal with the uncomfortable. It's like any social situation. If we have a difficult situation, we go to a ball game, we can talk about the ball game, and that makes it a little bit easier. So they're able to talk about the event, about D-Day. And by the way, they don't speak each other's languages, so the translation takes some time too. So, these are uncomfortable meetings, but you usually have something else to talk about. And it's an opportunity to humanize the relationship, because what happens over time is the leaders start talking about each other in third person. They start alienating each other. And this is a moment really to kind of reconnect and rehumanize the relationship, which is, frankly, the essence of diplomacy. If you don't have that kind of a tie, you're not able to deal with crises or conflict between countries.
Now, President Putin also met with the new president of Ukraine. How important is that?
That's very important, because the question here again is, what's the next step? And really the next step for the United States and Europe is the stability of Kiev, the stability of this new government, and moving forward in reforms. We've heard President Obama talk about this, talk about the need for economic reform, the need for anti-corruption measures, the need for there to be stability in Ukraine itself, in some ways as a central focus of next steps. Not so much worried about Russian tanks coming over the border, that has to be deterred, but what happens in Kiev? What's happening politically, economically, socially? And so I think that meeting between the leaders of the United States and Ukraine then is a very important moment, because the question is what's next for Kiev.
But this overall, I mean, these niceties today, it doesn't change anything here. We're still kind of where we were?
Yeah, we're where we were, and really this is the challenge for the United States and Europe. I mean, we're not rolling back the troops and lowering the Russian flags in Crimea. The Russians are still influencing in the east. You have Russian militias or proxies operating. There's still a lot of violence happening, an undercurrent of a potential civil war in the east. And so things are not going well. I don't want to suggest that by any stretch, but we're not at a moment of crisis where we're saying, we're about to see a battle here or a crisis there that is going to rupture this and bring it to a head. I think all leaders on all sides are trying to figure out at this moment what comes next.
All right, well, that's one we'll keep an eye on. Juan, thanks.
Thank you, Bob.
And thanks to you for watching Flashpoints. I'm Bob Orr. We'll see you next time.